The everlasting candle. In the waning days of summer, the English countryside of rural Yorkshire was shrouded in a relentless deluge. Winds heavy with moisture howled through the ancient hedgerows, carrying the earthy tang of sodden soil and decaying foliage. The air hung thick and oppressive, a humid veil that clung to skin and stone alike, while nights were pierced by erratic thunderstorms, bolts of lightning fracturing the sky like divine fissures, their thunderous echoes rolling across the misty moors. Nestled in a fog-laden valley lay the village of Eldridge Hollow, a hamlet steeped in eerie folklore. At its fringes stood the forsaken St. Agnes Chapel, once hallowed to a guardian spirit of the land, now a crumbling relic overgrown with thorny ivy and shadowed by leaning oaks. Locals shunned it, murmuring that the spirit had curdled into something malevolent, a sanctuary for restless souls yearning to breach the veil between realms. Ethan Blackwood, a 25-year-old man of quiet demeanor, dwelt in a sprawling Victorian manor at the village's heart. He was the last custodian of his family's ancestral rites, performing them with solemn precision amid the isolation of his remote life. Sharing the home was his grandmother, Eleanor Hawthorne, a 70-year-old woman whose frail exterior masked a profound well of traditional lore. She had nurtured Ethan since his parents' fatal plunge off a treacherous cliff road in dense fog a decade prior. Eleanor knew the old ways intimately, from herbal charms to divinatory signs, but she harbored a grim family secret, locked away like a poisoned heirloom. The ancestral altar commanded the central parlor, a polished oak table graced with faded sepia, portraits of progenitors, gleaming silver relics, and 3 ornate candlesticks forged in the village's long-shuttered smithy. On the eve commemorating his great-grandfather's demise, Ethan readied the ritual as rain lashed the leaded windows. The humidity rendered the room stifling, beads of perspiration tracing his temples as he knelt. With a steady hand, he struck a match and kindled the 3 beeswax candles. For the past that forges us, the present that endures, and the future that unfolds, he intoned, echoing Eleanor's teachings. These flames embodied the trinity of existence, temporal cycles, or celestial harmonies, and were destined to consume evenly, their fading signifying the forebear's gracious receipt. The first 2 candles behaved as anticipated, their flames steady and serene, smoke curling lazily upward to infuse the space with a comforting, mellifluous aroma of honeyed wax. Yet the third ignited with aberrant intensity, its flames surging high, casting distorted shadows that danced across the wallpapered walls, while its smoke thickened into an unnatural, coiling shroud. At first, Ethan proceeded unperturbed, arranging a modest supper of hearty lamb stew, fresh-baked bread, and robust ale for himself and Eleanor. She ate deliberately, her arthritic fingers steady, though her gaze flickered repeatedly to the altar, a subtle crease of disquiet etching her brow. As the tempest raged outside, thunder booming like ancient artillery, Ethan cleared the remnants. The initial pair of candles had extinguished, leaving symmetrical pools of congealed wax. The third persisted, its flame unquenchable, the smoke denser now, almost palpable in the heavy air. Dawn arrived, shrouded in grey, weak sunlight filtering through persistent clouds as Ethan awoke to the muffled crowing of a distant rooster. Stepping into the parlor, his breath caught. The candle burned undimmed, its wick unscathed, the flame as vivid as when first lit. "This defies all logic," he whispered, reaching out tentatively. The heat was palpable, scorching the air, yet the wax held firm. Eleanor emerged from her chamber, shawl draped over her shoulders, her complexion pallid. "Leave it untouched, lad," she warned, her voice quivering with unspoken dread. "It's an omen of unrest, a sign from beyond." Though Ethan honored the customs, his modern sensibilities sharpened by his solitary work as a software developer, tethered to the world via flickering screens, leaned toward empiricism. Candles did not burn eternally. Surely a flaw in the wick or an insidious draft was culpable. Still, the anomaly gnawed at his composure. He dialed Sarah Ellis, his enduring companion from university, now a history educator in the nearby market town, a paragon of rationality. Sarah dismissed the supernatural with wry humor. "An everlasting candle. You've been delving into too many Gothic novels." She chuckled over the line. "Likely a preservative in the wax. I'll come by and debunk this nonsense." Sarah arrived that afternoon amid a fresh torrent, her umbrella futile against the gale, water pooling at her feet as she entered. She scrutinized the altar with scholarly intent, the candle's glow reflecting in her inquisitive eyes. "Admittedly, it's peculiar," Ethan conceded, observing her reaction. She leaned closer, inhaling deeply. "The scent is altering sweet at the outset, now acrid, evoking charred remnants or something putrid." Ethan nodded. The metamorphosis was undeniable, the once benign beeswax now redolent of smoldering embers and festering decay, stirring uneasy visions in his mind. As dusk yielded to the second night, the manor stirred with insidious vitality. Ethan lay in his antique bed, the rain's cadence a hypnotic yet foreboding lullaby. Suddenly, from the parlor, emanated deliberate footsteps, measured, resonant, as if a spectral visitor in weighted boots paced the creaking oak floors. Thud, ... thud ... His pulse quickened, a chill prickling his skin. "Gran, is that you wandering?" he called softly, but only her faint snores answered from across the hall. Seizing a flashlight, he descended cautiously, its beam piercing the gloom like a wary sentinel. The altar loomed unchanged, the candle's luminescence pulsing rhythmically, elongating shadows into grotesque forms that seemed to writhe with intent. The footsteps abated, supplanted by 3 emphatic knocks upon the stout front door. Knock, ... knock, ... knock. Ethan flung it wide, the storm's fury assaulting him with sheets of rain. Yet the threshold was barren, the night a swirling abyss of mist and darkness. Shuddering, he secured the door and pivoted, his attention ensnared by the altar. Wax had cascaded, but not haphazardly. It formed enigmatic patterns, reminiscent of ancient runes or twisted sigils, etched deliberately upon the table's surface. He erased them with a trembling hand, his mind reeling. This transcended coincidence. With morning's advent, the candle remained defiant, compelling Ethan to confront Eleanor. She pondered in silence, her eyes clouded with memory, before relenting. "We require Father Mallory's counsel. He comprehends the chapel's enigmas and the whispers of the unseen." Father Mallory, the village's ascetic priest, braved the evening squall, his black cassock drenched, his countenance etched with solemnity, a gaunt figure with eyes that bored into souls. He unpacked his satchel, vials of consecrated water, a weathered grimoire, and crucifixes of aged silver. Examining the candle, he murmured invocations, an undying blaze, the hallmark of a soul denied repose, anchored to mortality. The 3 lights denote temporal symmetry. Discord reveals entrapment, a spirit that lingers, imploring resolution. Ethan pressed urgently, "Whose spirit haunts us?" The priest's gaze locked on Eleanor. "One entwined with your blood, undoubtedly." "Eleanor, the hour for concealment has passed." She averted her eyes, her silence a heavy shroud. From thence, the disturbances amplified. Midnight hours ushered in protracted whispers, thane, an ethereal timbre, as if emanating from subterranean depths or forgotten crypts. Phantom gusts infiltrated the hermetically sealed abode, buffeting the candle, which inclined perilously, yet rectified itself. Its flame indomitable. The smoke coalesced into nebulous anthropomorphic silhouettes, apparitions that hovered ominously, their tendrils extending toward him in silent entreaty or menace. Consumed by desperation, Ethan essayed to extinguish it. He poured water from a ewer, the flame hissing into extinction, smoke vanishing. Relief surged through him, ephemeral as mistmere. Moments later, a ember reignited, the candle reconstituting with amplified luminosity. He compressed it with his palm, searing pain lancing his flesh, yet the fire resurrected undaunted. In exasperation, he snapped the wax asunder, flinging fragments across the parquet only for them to incandesce, amalgamating seamlessly into integrity, ablaze with vengeful ardor. Frantic, he erupted into Eleanor's quarters, unveiled the truth. Gran now, she ascended from her repose, her visage a tapestry of regret and resignation. "Our lineage conceals a tragedy profound. Your great-uncle Not, the venerated ancestor, was unjustly condemned as a traitor amid the Great War's hysteria. The villagers, ensnared by fear, lynched him at St. Agnes, abandoning his corpse to the elements. Unabsolved and I obscured this abomination to safeguard you from its shadow. Now, his essence exploits the candle as a conduit, questing for a surrogate existence to procure liberation." Ethan's veins iced over. "A surrogate, you imply a life in barter." Eleanor affirmed with grave nod. "Indeed, sans that exchange, the flame perpetuates, afflicting our kin eternally." Rationality warred with burgeoning horror, but the manifestations brooked no denial. He beckoned Sarah, who materialized, ashen-faced, yet resolute. "This borders on lunacy," she demurred, but her quenching endeavor replicated the futility, scorching her digits and eroding her skepticism. Compelled by loyalty, she lingered to bolster him. That ominous night, they ventured forth to the chapel beneath a cataclysmic downpour. Father Mallory, pioneering with a swaying lantern. Mud ensnared their boots, lightning etching the edifice's silhouette like a sepulchral monolith. The portals creaked ajar on corroded hinges, unveiling an interior veiled in cobwebs and desolation. The principal altar lay desolate, but in a gloomy recess, an archaic candelabrum cradled a solitary flame indistinguishable from Ethan's. The Genesis, Father Mallory declared solemnly. Confined herein, it forges a nexus via the loop. A ferocious zephyr erupted, smoke surging into a grotesque effigy. Emaciated man bearing a noose's livid scar, countenance contorted in everlasting anguish, orbs abysmal chasms, EEEETHAAN, ... double quotes it rasped, spectral talons protruding. Ethan recoiled, his extremities immobilized by an unseen vice. Eleanor shrieked, "Seize me!" I perpetuated the veil of ignorance. The crescendo erupted in turmoil. The wraith assailed Eleanor, her form convulsing violently, froth spilling from her lips. Father Mallory's litanies and holy ablutions faltered against the onslaught. Sarah's wails cleaved the cacophony as she dragged Ethan toward egress. Yet an inexorable tether restrained him, the domiciliary flame's imperative summons. They fled precipitously homeward, the parlor convulsing, smoke a asphyxiating nebula. The spirit materialized in plenitude, a gallows spectre, visage warped in torment, murmuring insistently for substitution. In the vortex's core, Father Mallory vociferated, "Solely immolation appeases one, vitality for emancipation." Eleanor, waning inexorably, clasped Ethan's hand. "Flee, my boy, I shall atone." The entity repudiated her, permeating Ethan instead. A glacial conflagration engulfed his being, devouring his essence from within. Sarah's frantic exertions proved futile. As Aurora infiltrated the draperies, the hamlet buzzed with conjecture. The manor endured mute, apertures fortified. Sarah huddled on the veranda, fragmented. Eleanor's cadaver reclined, prostrate afore the altar. Father Mallory intoned mournfully, "The compact is consummated." Yet within, the candle incandesced perpetually. Ethan perched immobile, ocular voids, his somatic vessel metamorphosed into an eternal wick, the blaze incarnate. The aggrieved soul ensconced, vigilant for the ensuing quarry. Thenceforth, Eldridge Hollow issued the maledicted domain. The precipitations unabated, gales unrelenting, the flame inextinguishable. Chronicles of its malediction evoked visceral terror, a caveat that adherent phantoms yield to no annihilation.